Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mayor of Kingstown, Season 3, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had the situation where that homeless guy ended up finding Tati's body along with her baby. I'd assumed Constantine took the baby with him. Would have never thought he'd not only dumped the child, specifically dumped the child in the same dumpster that you dumped Tati. It's like, that's horrendous. Because I'm like, part of me is like, would it have been better if the baby was with Constantine? I think would be, but it's like, I guess that's even more of a message, or just kind of like, oh, like that's Tati's baby, so it's kind of like, well, it killed you, so everything associated with you has to go. Kind of just showing like they do not care. I mean, even Ian talks about it later on of like, these guys are crazy. These are people you do not mess with. These are scary people. So, but yeah, obviously this is going to strike a chord with Kyle because new father, newly fathered, and everything. So that's going to strike, especially considering like it's also a boy. Too, so that just draws the deeper parallels of like Tracy being like, I think there's a difference between like Tracy being pregnant with his child versus like, no, my child is out there in the world and there's evil like this. I knew there was evil like this, when my wife was pregnant with my child, but it's still a different beast altogether now that your child's out and about in this world. And it's just, I think that's also why he was extra like on the gun course. Part of me was wondering, is that SWAT related stuff, even though Robert told you not to go for it? Is that you still going for it? Or is that just like, I got to let out some of this anger and anxiety I have? Because he even holds baby Mitch in the later on, and even looking at a picture of Mitch too. Because he even said like, oh, when Mike was like, oh, what are you up to? He was like, oh, just working on being a father. I think it's just trying to be prepared in case anything goes down. Because I think there's also the element of what happened with Miriam. It's like, right, like, was I really prepared for what was going to go down? And I wasn't. So I've got extra motivation now that my mom's gone. Like, I have to I got to keep it locked down. I got to keep it 100 when it comes to like protecting my family, so I think a lot of that is influencing Kyle. But either way, obviously this struck a chord with Mike as well, like the whole Tati and baby situation, because even Ian was like, who knows how long they were in there, because I mean obviously the rats were already like feasting on her body, but also like the baby was already biting his hands, like starving. So the moment Mike figured out, the moment they came to the conclusion that this was most likely Constantine, that it's like, okay, so now Mike's getting a little concerned, not being able to get in contact with Iris. He's hoped and was praying that she had just left town, but now he leaves it to Kyle to look for her, and now it's like, okay, I gotta go visit Constantine myself. He goes in and makes a show of it, obviously, because twofold elements. One, you are a massive piece of shit for like dumping a baby in that dumpster. Like, once again, it sucks that you killed Tati. That's an issue in itself. They also, I want to say it might have been Stevie that said it, or was it I think it was Stevie that was kind of bringing up like there were other bodies dropped the same day too. Like they ended up discovering some other like bodies of people who were loyal to Milo, or at least worked for Milo. I'd assume still loyal to him. But when it's all said and done, like, Mike came in like a storm, and Constantine was unfazed because he's like, oh, like, animals, they bear their claws and whatnot. And he's like, that's what you are, Michael. You're an animal. I know exactly who you are. Michael McCluskey is like, cool. So I'm gonna make this clear. Like, you do not want me as an enemy. You started some shit in my town, and like, this is my town, and welcome to Kingstown, because it's like, this is kind of my territory, and you stepped into it thinking you kind of do whatever you want to. No more bodies, because he's also worried about, like I said, Iris. He's thinking like, if Iris isn't already dead, then maybe she could be a target, considering her connection to Milo. So jumping ahead a little bit, we do. We cut back to Iris looking after the girl that was like on the toilet last episode. Like I said, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, because like I said, they showed her in the recap at the beginning of last episode, but I do believe that was a girl that worked for Tati and Milo. So Iris kind of looking after her and being like, oh, no, like, they called your name, and she kind of looked back at her, because it's like, yeah, because she's definitely like not in a good place because you can tell like she's high. Like I think when we saw her last, like at least in that recap, she seemed perfectly fine and healthy. Like it seemed like the drugs have kind of gotten to her. She looks pretty rough. But I think for her, it's probably looking back at Iris. I don't know if she even recognizes Iris, but it's probably some level of like, wait, I was kind of shitty to you, but you were like actually really nice and kind to me. Because when you're at your lowest, it's kind of when you kind of need people the most sometimes. So. But yeah, Kyle ended up finding out about where Iris was. It's like, right, mom's car's an impound, no ID on the person, no fingerprints, which even Mike was like, yeah, of course she wouldn't give him his fingerprints. So luckily was able to get to Iris. It's like, cool, let them get your fingerprints. I'll get you out in an hour. Because she was like, yeah, I was hoping I would be able to handle this on my own. Because I think, once again, it says she could have called someone. The only person in the world she trusts and the only person she could have called was Mike, but she chose not to because she didn't want to trouble him. It's like, dude, you have to do so much, and you've already done so much for me, and I've already caused issues for you. I don't want to cause even more problems. So I wanted to figure this out on my own, but there's like no real way to get around this situation without like some Mike McCluskey involvement. But then like Iris was like, I can't have my prints taken. I was like, because I did think that was a whole thing last episode too. I was like, why won't she get her prints taken? What is she running from? And I thought like maybe it had something to do with the Constantine of it all. Like, are you worried about people knowing about your connection to Milo? There's something she's a part of, even to the point she's like, Mike can never know. And I'm like, what is it that she doesn't want him to know? Like, because there's a lot of stuff about herself. Because like, I'm not even sure if Iris knows how she feels about Mike. I don't know if it's like a familiar thing, because obviously the boys dropped the 3-episode premiere. It got me thinking about the Frenchie and Kimiko like relationship. I'm wondering where it seems like there's a direct parallel you can make between like Kimiko and Frenchie's relationship with like how Iris and Mike operate, because it almost feels like it could be familial and friendship. But it also feels like Iris does like him, and he kind of likes her too, but he doesn't want to cross that line with her because he kind of feels like that'll just kind of cause more issues for her and I think himself. Because I think that's also what Iris likes, that Mike doesn't want her for her body, and it's just like, you've never like, I was meant to be thrown at you by Milo, and you've never made a move. You've always kept it as platonic as possible. So that's why I'm like, I don't know what that dynamic is. It's probably a little bit of everything, but it's also like, yeah, this is a guy who I like, who I trust. The only person I trust, because he's come through time and time again. And despite everything, he's come to find me. She's like, yeah, I knew you'd find me sooner or later. He's like, yeah, but took a lot longer than he was kind of hoping for, especially with everything going on with Constantine. But I'm like, either way, getting back to the point I was making, like, what is it that she's hiding that she doesn't want Mike to know? He kind of knows a little bit about her past, but I mean, because he also doesn't, it didn't even cross my mind. I felt so stupid for not realizing when it was like, hey, Iris probably isn't even a real name. It's like, oh yes, I should have known, but I never thought about it. I was like, right, because Mike knows next to nothing about Iris, the little things that have come out here and there, but he generally knows nothing about her, and he's fine with that. I'm sure it's actually kind of the same way. I mean, I'm sure Milo filled her in on stuff about Mike, but even like he keeps his distance from people. That's the thing of like, maybe that's the thing of like, Mike is surrounded by so many people, but there is a loneliness to him, and maybe Iris feels that too, where it's like, oh, we're two lonely souls coasting through down this river that is life and Kingstown in itself. I don't know. The metaphor was there, but I feel like I went off a little off track there. But you get the point I'm trying to make, where she found that commonality with Mike, and I don't know. But I did like that it kind of brought Ian and Iris closer, because Iris doesn't want to give her prints to Ian, but Ian's like, dude, I've known Mike since we were like 6 years old, and it's like, I get it, you trust him, and he's like, hell, I only trust Mike as well. And it's like, but that day things went down in the season 2 finale, Mike had me up on that hill watching you, so it isn't just you, I got you, like whatever's in there I will make disappear. And he saw it, and he was just like, whatever it was, he was like, crap. And so, but Iris is like, yeah, like, just don't let Mike ever find out. He's like, find out about what? So Ian knows, but Ian does. Ian, it's so interesting because they literally just had the conversation later on when Iris would bringing up the fact is, oh, Constantine's causing you trouble. Ian said that he's worried about you, and it's like, well, Ian needs to kind of stop talking so damn much. It's like it's an irony behind that, but it's like, which even Iris is like, yeah, it's sweet. I think for her, it's kind of nice knowing, like, outside of Kyle, there are a handful of people that do care for Mike, like. There's that brotherhood camaraderie he has with Bunny. It's a very unique. He has a very unique relationship with a lot of people in his life. It's none of the relationships in his life are simple. They're very complicated and some deep, dark shades of gray. So that is an interesting element. She's not that familiar with Tati, but she recognized Constantine's photo when Ian showed her. So I was like, interesting. And so when Mike was asking her, like, oh, how close were you with Constantine? Basically, he was caught up on a murder charge in New York. She slept with a judge and ended up getting his charges dropped. But she ends up like when Mike gets like, okay, where you go is close, and he was like, I never slept with him. And it's like, I never said anything like that. You don't even have to worry about it. Don't even think like that. Like, you will never have to do something like that again. Things are different now. Because at first I was like, is Mike going to try and use her to get close to Constantine? Is that why he's pushing her? But immediately I was like, no, stupid. He's trying to figure out how close they were, because if she's someone that Constantine likes and cares, at least has a decent enough relationship with, he'd be less likely to ever pull the trigger on her like he did Tati. Because it's like he's hoping that if Constantine has no issues with you, you would never be on his list of targets. That's what Mike is. He's trying to protect a lot of people by shutting Constantine down from just going buck wild, but also more so than anything is trying to protect Iris. So they also had that conversation of, she's like, you were hoping I was like, how were you actually hoping I was going? And he was like, yes, I was hoping you were going. She's like, where was I going to go? He was like, anywhere that wasn't here. I didn't care anywhere, but because she's like, when you hope for me, like, what do you see? It's just like, that's all he cares about. It's like, I don't know, like, there's a little bit of him that's like, if you were gone, I would miss you, having you around, but I also know that's just me being selfish. I just want to make sure you're okay. In Kingstown, you will never be okay. I'm not okay. No one that lives in Kingstown is okay, so I want you as far away from this place anywhere else in the world, but here. And it's just like, it's that thing of, I want you far away, but I also do enjoy you being close by, because you being close by means I can keep an eye on you. But at least if I know you're out in the world, I can at least hope and pray and believe that you're just like living your life, whatever it may be, as long as it's not in Kingstown, So that's going to be interesting to kind of dive into that more as the season progresses. We also have Mike talking to Evelyn, which was interesting because he's trying to get her to drop this. She will not let the Robert thing go after everything that's going down. But Mike is like, you took your shot at him, you missed, which is so interesting. That's why I'm almost wondering, like, does Mike even consider Robert a buddy? It's like, probably he's more like on the associate front. They seem tight enough, and Robert's come through for him from time to time, but it's also like, Evelyn, do not cross this line, because you keep pushing this, there will be a point of no return that even I can't help you. And she's like, oh, that sounds scary. He's like, it's meant to sound scary, so let this go. Because even the higher ups, or just the higher up officer that she was talking to, was just kind of like, I got so many other crises I'm dealing with, I'm not about to deal with this whole Robert thing. Because she was like, yeah, blew up an area. It's like, yeah, it was a combat situation, they fired at him, and it was kind of like almost saying like, yeah, it was the appropriate countermeasure. It's like, I don't know if that was the appropriate countermeasure in that moment. But also, once again, Evelyn's looking for anything and everything to try and take Robert down. So, will she heed his advice? Probably not. Because she even said, like, right, this is our home. And she was even referencing, was it the Morrissey guy who was going to go up against Robert? The one person that was willing to do the right thing and try and take down Robert ends up dead. She's like, either Robert killed him, got someone to kill him, whatever the case may be. She's like, I know he's involved, which we know it was the Ian and Charlie thing, as they recapped at the beginning of the episode. So I don't know. I don't see that storyline ending happily. Once again, there's so many stories. I keep bringing up every episode. It's the depressing show, so it's like there's a good chance no one's going to get out of this happily, So, but I'm curious to see what that storyline ends up turning into, what the end result of that will be. There's also Mike and Bunny, which I love. Bunny couldn't get in contact with Mike, so he strode up at his office and talk to him, and this is where he finds out about Gunner, and it's like, wait, Gunner's dead? It's like, yeah, Mike, you slipping, bro. That was days ago. It's like, yeah, like none of that reached him. And it also makes sense why, because Kareem shut that shit down. It's like, because also like the one person that Mike has like on the inside that would report shit like that to him, Carney, has been like removed. Well, cause didn't he kind of get suspended for a little? I mean, I know he was on shit duty, but I can't remember if like Kareem actually like full on. I don't know how that did not make its way to Mike. I mean, to be fair, he's juggling so much. So, because like Rafael is making a deal with Roberto and the Colombians, which is kind of like, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. But it's like, do I look like I'm holding out my hand? Rafael's like, dude, we are surrounded by a gang of crackers that are going to want both of us dead. So how about when the time comes, Bunny's even kind of okayed it, we go back to back. So I got you. Let's just kind of work this out. Let's do business together. You cover us for, their drug situation being what it is. So that's mainly where all of that stands. But also, Raphael almost got, Raph came through with it. Like, getting away from all those people. Luckily, he's quick on his feet. Got past a lot of people. Got sliced in the arm, but he's good. Like, that was, any other person would have been, like, trapped and dead. Like, he fought tooth and nail. Like, good thing he's got the reflexes and he's quick on his feet. So that all worked out. But Mike's not too worried about it because, like, right, they're not going to go for... They took their shot and failed, so they're not going to go after Raphael now. It's like, right, double up security, because obviously you don't want to present an opportunity for them to be like, oh, he's open, let's go for it again. But it's like, as long as, like, he's been, like, you missed your chance, and now they're going to be on extra high alert, so it, like, reduces... Because if you try it again, like, there's going to be a lot more bodies dropped, and it's like, it's not going to be the covert thing you wanted it to be, so... But also, this is when Mike is kind of getting early word about Callahan, because he's like, oh yeah, with Gunner dead, someone else took over. He was like, what? Who? And brings up Millhaven, and immediately, that's what I'm trying to remember. I don't think, not unless that's something that came up in season 1, I don't think are we supposed to know Callahan? I don't think we are, because he knows Kareem and Mike. But I'm like, I don't know if that's something pre all the show, or whether that's like a season 1 thing, because I feel like I remember season 2 well enough that I don't remember Callahan ever coming up, but maybe he did. But I don't remember in season 1 if he was ever like... I don't think... Isn't this our first time meeting Callahan? So that's why I'm like, it might be a new character that's introduced that's like got history with Mike and Kareem. Don't know what it is. Because he's like, oh, you're the warden now. So like, obviously it's like recent enough history that it's like, they go far enough back that he's like, oh yeah, I could tell you're a warden by the suit and everything. Something I thought was really interesting is when Rebecca was like, oh yeah, Detective Ferguson contacted you. He was like, Ian, just say Ian. And she's like, I choose not to, which I was like, oh, that's such an interesting little thing. But I guess for her, it's like, yeah, Ian's your friend. And either that's just kind of like a, hey, that's my way of keeping it professional, is by not referring to him by his first name, because we're not that tight. It's like, he's an associate to my boss, and that's where I draw the line, and I want to keep it that way. I don't know whether she, or maybe she just doesn't fuck with cops like that. Maybe there's an element of that. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. I just thought that was such an interesting line to die. It's probably more so like I'm trying to keep this professional, and like I don't want to call you on a first name basis like we're tight or not. I don't really know you like that. I only know you because of Mike, and that's about it. But I think it'd be interesting that there is an element of, well, he's a cop and I kind of don't fuck with cops to some extent. So like I said, it could be a little bit of all of that or mixed in. I just thought that was kind of like a just interesting little quick line of dialogue. I was going to say the Callahan thing for later, but I felt like there was something else I wanted. Well, I could tie it all in, because I think I remember the other thing I wanted to talk about related to Mike, and that was like the Kareem thing. But like I said, I'll tie it all in, where Callahan has his sit down with Kareem, and Kareem's kind of figuring out, like, why'd you leave Millhaven behind? Like, you were kind of running things there. There was a lot of a cushy, like, you had a lot of amenities. Like, it was a pretty cushy gig and place for you. So why'd you come here? And he's like, well, I'm going to be close to a niece of mine. So, like, obviously he's spewing on this BS. But he said something really interesting with this conversation with Kareem, where he's like, I know what my future holds. I'm going to die in prison. He's like, I've kind of accepted that. Whether it's, like, inside my cell or is it out there in the yard, I'm going to die. But I'm going to be the one that gets to choose how I meet my end. Can you say the same thing, Kareem? And it's like, Kareem doesn't even have a rebuttal to that. But Mike and Kareem have their conversation about how things are operating. Kareem is doubling down on keeping as Mike says, like siloing everything in the prison. Even though Mike's like, you can't just like keep information to yourself about shit going down in the prison. You can't like feign ignorance, being like, well, what happens to the prison is my territory. What happens out there is KPD's. It's like, it doesn't work like that, because what happens in this prison affects what happens on the outside. I know it, you know it, we all know it, but you fading that to try and like wrestle some control back in your life by being like, right, I'm a shut this down. It's like, it's not going to work like that, you know? He wants it to kind of be a one-way street type of thing when it doesn't operate like that. It never has. And so Mike is able to kind of get some wiggle room through of like, right, I eventually want to meet with Callahan, but only when I know what the next part of the plan is, like whatever it is he's orchestrating, which we know that Constantine reached out to him. So we reached out to Callahan. So I guess they're going to be doing business. I wonder, did Callahan have any like ties to Milo or something? Like the reason why he Constantine would take now to like I mean, because it's right, he just came to Kingstown, so it's like, I guess there would have to be some correlation there of like either because of contacts through Milo, or whether it's just Constantine knows he's a big enough deal. Maybe I was reading too much into it, but it did seem like Mike was like, I get it, you did what you did, and you kind of went through what you went through, and I'm not telling you like you should regret it, or he's like, I'm not even telling you you should take it back, or even if I was in your situation, would take it back. It sounded like he was kind of pushing on what Carney like accidentally dropped last episode of Kareem getting his get back. It feels like that was in reference to that, but maybe not. You know, because Mike didn't get any direct details, but maybe he pieced two and two together by Carney's statement last episode.Maybe not. But it's like, yeah, like I said, he was able to kind of worm enough. It's like, right, you and I, you cannot fight me on every little thing, Kareem. I'm not trying to like tell you how to run shit. You can run the prison how you want to, but you got to give me some leeway on some of this. So, at the very least, it's like keep Callahan like ostracized from other people at the bare minimum, so we can potentially minimize a lot of the stuff to figure out what he's up to, why he's here, because he's not just here for no reason. He's here for a reason, we just don't know why. I do like that. Also, Mike went to visit Constantine after everything at the end of the episode and has a sit down with him. And Constantine even let him keep the gun. It's like, he's not even going to shoot me. But he's like, yeah, I underestimate you. Your brother's one thing, because I thought you both were Milo's pimps. But at the end of the day, your brother's a whole different conversation. But I heavily underestimated. You are a different kind of animal. He's like, yes, I am. This is Kingstown. You wanted, like, I'm not the person you like try to kill, because I forgot to talk about the fact that a guy tried to come after Mike, and Mike stabbed the guy and killed him, and then called up the number. I'd almost expected Mike to be like, yo, let me talk to Constantine. Didn't say anything. He just dropped the phone, and just later on Ian's like, all right, I can clean it up for you. He's like, no, leave it as kind of a calling card, kind of a statement, to Constantine. So it becomes a conversation, a reminder of, you don't get to do anything in this town. You don't get to benefit from this town. So you need me. I'm the one that gets, I'm the mover, I'm the shaker. I'm the one that gets to determine what you get to do in this town. Like, I'm the reason why you may have success or failure in this town. So he's like, right, because you are the mayor. He's like, you goddamn right. And it's kind of like, yeah, don't forget about it. So, and bounces. So we also caught up a little bit with the, like, speaking of, I brought it up earlier, the whole Ian and Charlie of it all, where Ian, I guess he was trying to kind of read the room about the whole Morrissey situation to some extent, because he's checking in on, he's like, oh, you got any good words? He's like, no good words. He was kind of like, I'm not feeling good, but it's like, yeah, let's have hamburgers another time, so it's like, I guess Ian's trying to read the room with Charlie, figure out, has he said anything to anybody? Has he let anything slip? But it's also, he's very as endeared towards Ian, so he would never do anything, at least intentionally, to hurt Ian, or that would cause issues for Ian. Which, speaking of Ian, him, one cop, and Stevie were leaving the precinct, and then, boom, cars started exploding. I'd assume that's Constantine. I can only assume, but maybe not. But it's like, yeah, if you notice what cars blew up, it's specifically cars related to detectives, because it could just be regular cop cars as well, because it's their personal cars, which the detectives kind of use like like police unit cars anyway. 'Cause my point was, like, if you look, all the police unit cars, which are like black or whatever, like, we're fine. It's the regular cars that blew up. So kind of speaks of volumes. Like I said, even if those are like your detective vehicles, which might also be your personal vehicles, it was specifically the personal vehicles that caught flame, blew up. So multitude of people that message could have been sent from, but it feels like, well, we got a big player like Constantine here doing his own thing, so that might have been his rebuttal to Mike. Because I'm like, who else would like go after the cops like that, making a statement other than Constantine? Kind of saying like, right, even if you back the mayor, this isn't, because that did happen after Mike visited Constantine near the end of the episode. So it's like, that felt like that was kind of his rebuttal to Mike's statement and also killing his guy. So some very, very interesting developments. I believe that's everything. There might be something else I'm forgetting, but I can't think of it at the top of my head. If that it feels like that might be everything, but I could be wrong. If I end up remembering anything else that I wanted to talk about later on when I'm getting the thumbnails, I'll probably just record a little extra section and insert it here. Otherwise, I'll end things here, and I'm very eager and excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.